Colorado for another episode of Servant Leadership. And today have the pleasure of speaking with Stephanie Atiase of Intercontinental Hotels Group, formerly or also known as IHG. And so, Stephanie, if you just tell us your story, tell us where you came from, how you decided to get to IHG, and don't leave anything out, because I know more about you, but I want the listeners to hear your beautiful story.
Sure. Oh, wow. Well, life takes many turns, but oftentimes, if you're open to new experiences, you get to the right place. So a little bit about me. I was born in Gainesville, Florida. So for all the Gators out there, my dad and mom both worked with the University of Florida. My mom got her master's. My dad was a professor there. Um, and then we moved to Austin, Texas, where I spent most of my life, pre-18, so most of my childhood. And I am the child of two accounting professors. So that's interesting in that my parents are very much value education. My parents are from West Africa, so Ghana specifically. My mom's heritage is actually from Sierra Leone, but they were both raised in Ghana, and both were able to come to the United States for education purposes. My dad got a scholarship to go to Berkeley to get his master's and his PhD. And then, as I mentioned, my mom at the University of Florida. So anyways, we got to Austin, Texas, and that's where I was raised. And then when I was thinking about college, I was one of those type A, overachievers, applied to 14 colleges, got into 12. Harvard waitlisted me, and so I guess that's part of the story going forward, but ended up going to University of Southern California on a full ride, studying accounting. I thought I wanted to work in business, and even though my parents didn't push it on me, for some reason I was actually interested in studying it. And so that was good. I learned the ins and outs of business. I also fell in love with learning a lot about social sciences as well. And it was just a great experience at the University of Southern California. And then after that, I worked at Ernst & Young in their advisory group. So traveled a lot doing operations and just general consulting with them, and then also earned my CPA at the time. Got into Harvard Business School for grad school, which was a blessing to get into early in my career. Sure. And so then went to HBS and really fell in love with this combination of operations, human capital development, and growth strategy. Knew I still wanted to be a consultant, because I thought there was so much still to learn, and that's a great job to have if you love learning. And I wanted to deeply understand how companies are run and to work with some of the best executives around the world across many industries. Wow. And so for the 5 years after business school, I did just that. I worked across many industries, so consumer, technology, retail. I worked abroad. I worked in India for some time, London as well, and really got to learn about how companies are run and what it means to not just lead different types of teams, and really also fell in love with the hospitality and travel industry. I think partly just being on the road every single week and staying in hotels that made me feel like I was at home even when I wasn't at home. And, definitely stayed in some nice fancy places around the world, and London and Dubai and LA, but I also did projects where I was working in Fredericktown, Pennsylvania, and Midland, Texas, and Grand Junction, Colorado, which were all nice cities, but really got to experience the limited service hotel experience where service really does matter. Sure. And where people are just want to make sure that they have a good night's sleep and are surrounded by good people. So I really enjoyed that. And lucky for me, as every consultant, you experience a moment where you're like, you know what, I want to be home on a Tuesday night. I don't want to be on the road anymore. And so at that moment, lucky for me, I got an opportunity to work at Hilton, leading first one of their strategy teams and then their strategy and new ventures team.
Mhm.
And that was a great experience because I got to spend 4 years there, just really learning a lot about franchise businesses, real estate, customer strategy, digital strategy, product development. Um, and just a deep dive into how that company was run. And then, lucky for me, also, I feel like good things often come to you as you do good work. She reached out to lead the Holiday Inn Express brand globally, and somebody who really loves marketing and like how do you pull in consumer insights to inform marketing strategy, and just the idea of owning brand operations and being a partner with development for the brand. It was
Sure.
really a great role for me as a good next step, and so excited to join the IHG family and now lead Holiday Inn Express. We have over 3,000 hotels globally, and naturally work with all of our owner partners to make sure we're delivering a great guest experience for our customers. And just also truly excited to continue to think about ways to innovate the brand experience in a limited service hotel offering.
So tell us, what is the most fun part of your job? And for those of us that are looking at the other side of the coin too, what are some of the parts of your job, whether you're in it for leadership or not, that you're looking to do differently because they don't bring you joy?
Hmm. So I think because of my years as a management consultant, I'm somebody who loves learning and I love to tackle multiple topics. I like, there's a creative element of my brain, there's the analytical element of my brain, and I love both working at the same time. So I think I really do enjoy working with cross-functional teams on building out successful strategies for this brand.
Sure.
And so that can be a lot of fun. Um, I also have a great team. And it's a global team. So, my leadership team has brand strategy, brand design, brand experience, our Europe leader, our China leader,
Mm.
and then
Oh,
also
cool.
there's an F&B concept to it. So we cover a lot of different topics in our meetings, which has been great. And then just really building out brand culture and team culture is something I'm really passionate about. With regards to brand culture, we just had our first service summit in the
Mm.
Americas for Holiday Inn Express. We had over 1,800 people register for it. So
Awesome.
it's everything around building brand pride, as well as celebrating our culture on property. And also, we're in an interesting time post-COVID where when we go to a hotel, sometimes we see it very transactionally, right? You go check
Mhm.
in, you get to your room, and our guests are going through a lot in life outside of coming to the hotel, right? When they walk in, they're thinking about their family, they're thinking about work, they're thinking about their friends, they're thinking about their health. And then our employees are also thinking about a lot, as you know, in the service industry, we're trying to get
Sure.
people back. And so they have a lot on their minds too. And I just think this focus on like providing everyone grace as we engage. So guests getting grace and also our employees getting some form of grace as we all try to deliver great service. I think also we have to be thoughtful about what we can do with resources at hand. But I think what's important is that we're all on the same page around just really being focused around the success of the brand. And I think everybody is, so that's great. But I think for me, I wouldn't call it a frustration. I would just call it I have to remind myself that I'm sometimes a little bit of a perfectionist.
Sure. And I'm certain that came up in many of the interviews you've ever had. And I'm sure you've interviewed as a consultant or served
Mhm.
people that you see you in them.
Yeah.
And you're staring at a man that has suffered with is that good enough? Is that good enough? Well, if you're a perfectionist, you always are asking yourself that question in the back of your
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie, you brought up one of my favorite topics, and it's culture. And then you put the word team in front of it. And I'm sure you had a lot of teams that you've led and you've consulted. Share with us what's your secret of culture in general, and then drill it into why culture to a team is so critical.
For me, a good culture includes three things. One, a place where people feel like they can be themselves, can be authentically true to themselves, and show up in a way that makes them feel comfortable, like they're somewhat at home at work, right? I think that's a great culture, and where their perspective is appreciated. It may not always be taken, right? But there's a known appreciation for everyone's perspective. So I think that's the elements of authenticity are really important in a good culture. I think the second piece of a great culture is collaboration. So at the end of the day, in every organization, no one team, no one person can accomplish all goals. And so you need each other. And I think just the recognition of needing each other, there's um, I don't know if it's an African proverb or it's just a proverb in itself, but it's just like one hand can't wash itself. Like you need both hands to wash your hands. But basically, we all need each other.
Not to interrupt, Stephanie, but what a beautiful visual when people are thinking about the need of both of these in order to get a job done. And in your case, what you mentioned, beautiful.
And then I think the last piece is more around you can't really, I think, have a great culture unless you're really aligned on goals that you want to achieve. So sometimes people separate out like strategy and strategic planning from culture. But oftentimes, if the strategy is not right, your culture won't be right either.
What's your take on the why question? And you probably know Simon Sinek, and he says it's kind of all starts with the why, which is purpose to me. So what's your take on that?
I'm making sure you're clear on why you're doing anything and how to embed that within an organization. In consulting, there's a framework around the 5 whys, right? For everything that you do, you ask yourself why 5 times to get the root cause of what's happening. I do agree that if we're not clear on the why behind the work that we do, behind our purpose in life, and also just making sure that your team, sometimes like you have a junior person on their team and they're doing some like analytical model or they're creating a slide and they don't actually understand the why. So just reminding all the members of your team that there is a purpose around the work that you do. That's also really important. But yeah, no, the why is very important.
Yeah. So let's jump over to a little topic I know a little bit about, and obviously you do, and you are one. It's leadership. What do you believe are the most valuable principles or qualities, characteristics of a good leader? And then I'll ask you, why do you believe those 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 are important?
I think similar to what I said about culture. I mean, I think authenticity. I think people can sense when a leader is either not in their corner or is not genuine about their meeting their performance goals. Like you can sense when a leader is out only for themselves and not for their team. And so I think authenticity is really important, that your team knows that you genuinely care about their performance, not just on a professional level, but on a personal level, like you care about them. But then also like being open about like who you are and being vulnerable around like, these are my strengths, these are my areas of opportunity. Or, if it makes sense, maybe something personal about yourself that you're working on. I think at the end of the day, people go to work, right? I saw a quote the other day that was like, employees better known as people with more work-life balance, right? So we're all just people like trying to build connection with one another in a working construct. And so I think that connection between authenticity and genuinely caring about your team. I think that definitely makes a good leader. I do think that a leader also needs to be effective in role, right? Like,
Yeah,
I think sometimes people don't talk about that because it is important that you understand your function, you understand your industry, you understand the way things work so that you can help your team be successful. And
absolutely.
so really focusing on that is important. Um, and then I think the last element of leadership is, and I think you mentioned it earlier around humility, but it's broadly about making sure you recognize those folks that enable your success.
Mhm.
Because I can't do anything without my leaders owning their functions and truly delivering on our goals and working with our broader team. So, I mean, I often will say, like, this is all a team effort.
Yeah,
And sometimes I get the credit, and sometimes the company gets the credit, sometimes the brand gets the credit. But at the end of the day,
yeah.
it's all a team effort. And so I do go out of my way to thank my team on a regular basis because I do truly appreciate all that they do. And so um, I think those three qualities around authenticity, genuinely caring about your team, expertise in your area, and then just truly appreciation for all that your team does.
Well, humility to me, by the way, I appreciate you throwing in the word vulnerability. I believe there's a lot of older leaders that haven't had any coaching or true leadership development, or not enough. They don't realize the importance of showing who they are as a human being.
Mhm.
Whether you're a man or a woman, I believe we're all human beings first, and letting people know that you work with that, hey, I'm human too, and I want you to see me, and I'm going to be transparent as to who I am and where I'm coming from, and without an opinion, just letting people see you. Humility also, you mentioned, and I believe it lives next door to empathy, and you hit on it a lot already,
Mhm.
but we want to understand and appreciate where other people are coming from so
Mhm.
that we can lead them in a way that maybe someone else isn't.
Mhm.
So I want to wrap up our time together, Stephanie, with one question, and I'm very passionate about two topics. I have a huge conference coming up on Thursday, February 3rd, called Leadership Development Day, and there'll be
Awesome.
12 speakers and three different conversations. But two of the conversations are around women in leadership,
Mhm.
and the other one is the vision of young leaders. So,
Mhm.
with the time allotted to us, just touch on one or the other, um, or maybe a combination, because I know there's a lot of young leaders out there either wondering, when am I going to get my turn? Or how do I lead better when I do get my turn? So, address whatever part of that you'd like.
Hmm. Both great topics. I'll say something short on each one.
Okay,
How about that?
perfect.
Um, Women in leadership. First, I think women make great leaders.
I agree.
For all the reasons I talked about when it comes to culture building and leadership traits, I think naturally women tend to be nurturers.
Mhm.
And so I do think women tend to make really great leaders. And I've had some phenomenal male leaders as well.
Sure.
And so both can thrive naturally. But I think being a good woman, being a good female leader really does require a sense of both humility and that you often are engaged with folks that are potentially more senior. You aren't may not be used to working with a woman at your level, may not be used to working with a Black woman at your
Amen.
level. And most of the corporate rooms I've been in, I typically am either the only woman or the only Black woman. And so because of that, and because that's probably been my life of most of my career, I've gotten used to just um, acknowledging it and not hiding from it. There's a professor in my business school who said that if you can't hide it, feature it, right? And I've always loved that. So I think
Love it.
female leaders thrive when they can be authentically themselves, but
Mhm.
also just acknowledge like there is difference. And there are many reasons why we should appreciate having female leaders at the table in the same way we should appreciate having diverse leaders at the table, because I find that most marketing or product mistakes tend to happen when you don't have diverse leaders at the table. And so I
Yes.
think it's super important that we continue to improve the numbers of female leaders across all ranks, as well as diverse leaders. And then to your point on the next generation of leaders, I will say the first thing is enjoy whatever moment you're in. Sometimes people are so eager to get to the next phase of their career. And I find that when you're truly invested in whichever phase you're in, whether or not you're an analyst or you're the CEO, if you truly are invested in that phase and you're doing great work and you're sharing your journey, you're sharing your story, and you're learning new things, you will advance.
Yeah.
But you have to really be passionate about what you're doing. But the second piece is, like, people do need to know what you're doing.
Right.
Right? Like, you need to speak to your accomplishments. And as somebody said the other day, in a leadership call I was in, was that it's not bragging if it's facts, right? So folks should speak to their accomplishments. And then the last point I would make is that don't be afraid to try something new, try a new industry, try another company if you don't feel like you are where you want to be within your organization. I think sometimes people feel stuck, and the reality is it's a big world out there. There's so many fun and interesting things to do. And sometimes people just, wherever they are at that moment, is just not where they're supposed to be. And so don't be afraid to just pick up and try something new, but always appreciate all of the learnings that you gain from each experience, because they help inform your next steps.
Yeah, I really appreciate your insight on both. I see you as a 59-year-old. I see you as everything you've just discussed. And I will just go on the record to say that IHG is lucky to have you, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you.
No,
Thank you
really.
so much.
I've been in the hospitality business 32 years. I've been a leadership coach now for 8. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. I've traveled the world. By the way, when you said India and London, where you lived, I mean, foreshadowing a little bit, of course, you know that 60% of all hotels in America are owned by someone in the organization called AHOA, Asian
Yes,
American
absolutely.
Hotel, of course.
Yes.
A lot of them are from India and or
Yes.
Pakistan. And then, of course, IHG's world headquarters based outside of London. So
Yes.
I believe someone knew, maybe you or someone above knew that you were going to end up at IHG. And
Yeah, maybe. You never know.
what a great role. You're with a fantastic company, in my humble opinion. It's one of the best out there. I give a lot of credit to Marriott and Hilton, of course, and all the other brands that are out there. But they're lucky to have you. I appreciate your time today.
Yes, absolutely.
Usually on a podcast like this, we dive right into leadership, but I tell you, your story and how it might affect people listening to this, who knows the impact it will have on young women, young people of color. And I'm just going to echo what you said, and what I heard you say is, young leaders out there, enjoy what you're doing and pack up when you want to. But listen to what Stephanie also said. Take time to appreciate where you are now, and have that departure with appreciation in your heart, because at some point they did give you that opportunity. So let's not just go bouncing back and forth. That's not what Stephanie said. She said, enjoy what you do and have enjoy in your heart and have fun. And I believe, Stephanie, life's too short not to have fun.
Exactly.
And I ask leaders every day to lighten up.
Yes.
Really.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean,
well, I just want to say thank you so much, Greg, for this time.
My pleasure.
I do agree with you. IHG is a gem of an organization. And so if anybody's ever interested in working at IHG, they should definitely reach out. We have a phenomenal culture and great brand offerings. And if you love travel, it's one of the best places to be. So thank you so much, Greg, for this time. It's been so great to connect to talk about leadership.